Welcome to Your Future Starts Now, the go-to podcast for extraordinary women who are ready to step into their next chapter with authentic confidence. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua, empowerment coach, motivational speaker, children's book author, and girl mom. Whether you're a corporate powerhouse or an entrepreneur, this show is designed for you. Your Future Starts Now is more than just a podcast. It's a movement towards rewriting the rules of success for high-achieving women. Are you ready to get unstuck and step into your next chapter? If so, you're exactly where you need to be. Your future starts now. Welcome to Your Future Starts Now. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua. I want to thank you for tuning in today. I'm so excited to introduce you to Conor Murphy. Conor is a Navy veteran, a certified CrossFit trainer, senior trainer for CrossFit seminar staff, podcast host, and most importantly, a girl dad. Conor trains everyone from celebrities to professional athletes to his parents because fitness is his passion. Currently, Conor is the managing partner of Big Night Fitness, where he brings together all of his favorite aspects of life: entertainment, passion, and fitness. He's opened several gyms, started half a dozen companies, and loves creating new opportunities to enjoy fitness and community around the world. Conor, I am so excited to chat with you today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that intro. Again, it always makes me sound way cooler than I am, so thank you.
You are a busy guy. So tell us a little bit about your backstory and what led you to the work that you're doing today.
When I grew up playing sports, my parents were always very committed to fitness and letting me know that if I wanted to excel in sports, even at a very young age in elementary school through middle school and high school, that I needed to make training a priority. And whether that be specific training for a sport or just general health and wellness. And that's kind of what brought, just wanting to get that competitive edge is probably what pushed me towards fitness. And then kind of the same rules applied when I went into the Navy and I wanted to be at the top level of my training, and I wanted to do things outside of what we were doing in training to improve my fitness. It was always a driving force about a better quality of life. And when I got out of the Navy, it just seemed like that was the one thing that stuck. And even though I didn't have anything specific that I was training for, I knew that my quality of life was significantly better if I was prioritizing my health and wellness through fitness, diet and nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. So tell us a little bit about, what are some of the key principles, lessons, or values that you took away from your time in the Navy that you apply to your life today, personally or professionally?
Oh, wow. I mean, there are a lot, and there were a lot of lessons learned on site, but I want to say there were more lessons learned as I went down the road outside of the military. It was like, man, I wish I could have drawn those parallels at the time. But I think a big piece is working in communities. In the area that I worked in the Navy, it was a very, very tight-knit community. And it was just a lot more motivating to do anything, to do hard work, to achieve, very, very difficult goals and tasks. When you had a group of people that all had that common goal, it made things maybe not easier, but a lot simpler, where you knew what you had to do and you were going to accomplish that at any cost. That was a big piece that I've taken with me. The reliability of something, not to go down like a dark hole early, but I think a lot of the reasons for PTSD and people that are leaving the service, it's not necessarily what happened when they were in the service. It wasn't that, there were these like terrible things that happened in war. And I'm not saying that those didn't happen, but I think for the most part, regardless of your role, when you're in the service, you're relied upon to do your job, whether it's paperwork, whether it is in front lines and combat roles, whether it is, anything from, people behind the scenes, front lines, whatever it is, everyone has a role and you are relied upon to do that role. And it gives this meaningfulness in life. And I think when people transition out, you can have a job that's paying you a lot of money. You can have, people that want to be around you. You can have a lot of these different things, but that meaningfulness and doing something of purpose where you can realize, hey, if I don't do my job, it doesn't get done. I think that's one of the main reasons is that people lose that, whether it be a sense of community, camaraderie, or just usefulness to others. I think that's a big piece of it. And so figuring out what I can do outside of the service and figuring out, if I'm ever getting to a low point in my life, it's like, well, how meaningful am I to other people? What services can I provide? And then kind of using that to kind of steer my journey back on the right path has been really, really helpful, especially over the last few years.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And I love what you said about being purpose driven and being in service to others. And we have other people who are relying on us. So I think one of the things that I hear you saying without actually saying it is it's not just about what you're doing, but it's about how you show up. It's about sort of what you bring to the table, and also how you make other people feel. I think that's a really important part of it. Um, so it sounds like you were able to sort of transfer the service orientation from the Navy to the work that you're doing today, which is so beautiful and powerful.
Yeah, and part of the training that I did was very, very physically demanding.
Yeah.
And that was a piece that I was able to carry with me, even though I wasn't training for anything. And we always make that joke whenever people all post a workout or something, and people being like, "What are you training for? The apocalypse?" And you're like, "I don't know, but you know what? When I do hard things, and I encourage other people to do that, and I help them on that journey, my life is better. So I'm gonna keep doing that. Maybe it's this black box theory, right? Inputs, something's happen, outputs. Like I'm going to
Sure.
keep doing that because the outputs are what I really want to focus on.
Absolutely.
And it's been incredible too. And that's been like the main purpose is I have a position now where it's not just, I always hate and cringe whenever it's like, oh, Connor's a celebrity trainer. I'm like, I train everyone. And
Mhm.
sometimes they happen to be celebrities,
Mhm.
sometimes they happen to be professional athletes, but improving the quality of life for other people, it gives you a commonality with anyone. There are people that are billionaires from the finance world that I have nothing in common with. However, I have this unique ability by focusing on fundamentals to improve their quality of life just by helping them in physical fitness, and that makes me of value to them. And I don't have I'm not an exercise physiologist. I don't have a PhD in any of these studies. I just found some incredible coaches and mentors where I focus on basics, and it turns out that's what most every person on this earth needs.
Yeah.
And so it has created a lot of, I would say, purpose in my life. And when people talk about, I don't know, success, or people talk about wealth and that, I'm like, well, I feel like I'm incredibly wealthy because I love my job and I get a chance to do things for other people and it's selfish too. It's not like I'm this, I'm not this saint who's going around like healing everyone. I'm like the feeling that I get when someone sends me a message, hey, I was able to accomplish this, and this is
Mhm.
getting better. I increased my muscle mass, I lost weight and bone density, all of this different stuff. It's like selfishly that feels incredible for me.
Yeah.
And the high that I get from that and that purposefulness that I get now, it's like it is a give and it's a take position, and I'm just so fortunate to be in that position from the people who have kind of trickled this information down to me.
Yeah, I love that. And being in service to others is all about having that impact, right? It's the feedback that you get in terms of the changes they've made and how they've grown, that really give you that energy to continue doing what you're doing. So I love that. I also love what you said about the commonality, right? Whether you're a stay-at-home mom or, the president of the United States, like the commonality is wellness, right? Everybody wants to be in good health physically and mentally. So it's a great point that, it's a way to connect with people, pretty much anyone, right? So, and you and I in the work that we do talk about overcoming adversity and resilience. And so I would love to know from your perspective how you view the connection between physical strength and mental strength.
Um, Everything I'm going to say is what I've learned from other people here. None of these are original ideas from me. It's always just like being able to pick and choose. I always say beg, borrow, and steal from those that you look up to. Um, and I have a good friend of mine, Chris Irwin. He works in partnerships in the Navy SEAL Foundation, but he's also gone through a lot of health issues that have gone essentially undiagnosed from Western medicine.
Hmm.
And for him, he has a thing called mind fitness. And it's really the combination of physical and mental fitness being one and the same, and that it's very difficult for someone to be, incredibly healthy or fit, yet be majorly deficient in one of those. So it's kind of this all-encompassing piece there. And if you're doing the right things physically, it definitely helps you in the mental side of things, but it's not a the end all be all. I know a lot of people who are incredibly fit, who have at the fittest levels of professional athletes, who have full mental breakdowns. They have no idea who they are as people. They know that training hard is good for them, but there's another aspect of, again, what is the purpose, what is the usefulness to others, and what really makes someone happy. And so you see it swing from both sides of the spectrum. But I think that if you're going to say you're healthy, you need to work on both sides of those. And they're not two separate things. They need to be combined together a lot more.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, in the work that I do, I talk about holistic well-being and the different facets of life and how they are all connected, right? Mind, body, spirit, it's all, you need to work on all of them, but we all have to keep them all moving in the right direction in order to really harness that inner strength and that inner power. So really great point. Talk to me a little bit about, one of the other things we talk about on this podcast is the art of reinvention. And so throughout your career and in your journey, what I tend to see is that we get stuck. We get stuck in, maybe it's a job, we get tied to a title, we get settled to a company, and it's really hard to break out of that, right? Because we sort of get in our own way. I would love to know, given your journey, how do you view reinvention, personal reinvention?
Oh, wow. So this is, there's kind of two times that I want to talk about this. And both may not make me sound like the best human on earth, but shoot, if someone can learn and be helped from it, I'm an open book on that. And the first time was how I left the Navy. My entire goal, and upon enlisting in the Navy and graduating high school, I never took my SATs. I never did anything. I was the guy who went into class, and I was like, what do I have to do to pass this class? That's all I care
Mhm.
about.
Mhm.
Because outside of it, I don't see the relevance to my life. And I don't need to try too hard in this when I can be doing training and other stuff that's going to prepare me to be a Navy SEAL. And so enlisting into the Navy and going through all this training and suffering and these camaraderies and the relationships that I've formed, and you reach this goal that's like, all right, I'm here, I accomplished this task. And then I had an injury that stopped me from being able to do the job. I had a surgery that was recommended that was said, hey, you can be cleared to go. You can be cleared for your jump dive physical. Once this happens, you'll be good to go. And then I went back in, and I wasn't cleared. And through that, I held on to this. It was more than I was no one. I was my job.
Mhm.
I put everything that I had to be invested in that. And you know what? I think I had to. I didn't have another option. I didn't have strengths in that area to be able to make it through by being like, well, if it doesn't work out, I was all in. I was all into this. And so when I received that news that I wasn't going to be cleared for my jump dive physical, I immediately got civilian opinions for different dive officers to get me cleared through. I essentially went to war with the Navy and didn't do it the right way. After that, I was mad at the world. I thought, hey, I've sacrificed all of this stuff.
Mhm.
I've been able to, here I am as this outstanding human, and it was taken away from me, or at least I viewed it as it being taken away from me. And I was bitter. I thought the world owed me something. I would, if I felt bothered by someone, I would get into physical altercations with them, and it didn't matter the advantages and the training that I had outside of it. It was like I was probably a fun person to be around for some people because I loved going out. I loved going to the bars. I loved, just having a great time. But I had this thing that I almost wanted people to feel bad for me because I'd sacrificed so much, and now I didn't have anything. And it took a long time after that. It was actually, funny enough, I give this guy a lot of credit, Chris Irwin. When I left the Navy, there's a certain amount of time where you had to make medical appointments, and so it's not just like, hey, you're not going to do this, so you can, go do XYZ. In that time, I spent time getting into trouble and doing things where the Navy's like, hey, man, like you're gonna make this a lot worse for yourself. And I stopped listening to the people above me, and when I eventually got out, I moved down to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. So I was honorably discharged. Everything was good in that. And I moved down, and I just wanted everyone to know what I had done and what I had sacrificed. And it was like I had done something for this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I met this guy, Chris Irwin, and it was actually funny enough. I thought he was a fraud because, not a lot of people are, when someone's like, oh, I'm a Navy SEAL down at like a remote Caribbean island, you're like, oh, I want to expose this guy. Turns out this guy was the real deal. He was essentially retired after 20 years as a commander in the SEAL teams. He was a lieutenant commander at DevGru, which is the highest level. It's like once you become a SEAL, then you have like the next upper echelon levels of it, which is just incredible. And this man, he didn't think the world owed him anything. To him, what he did was a job, and he needed to move on from that job.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to find usefulness with his family, with his kids, with everything that he did. He just did really, really well. And that kind of unconsciously gave me permission to be like, hey, maybe the world doesn't owe me anything, especially relative to this person who did a lot more than you did. Maybe it's time for you to move on. And that was an important topic too. And that was an important piece and turning point in my life where I could really invest everything into training. And not just, hey, I am my placement at the CrossFit Games, but I am my effort. I am the currency which is in all work. And it doesn't matter if you finish first or you finish last. It does. Your life's significantly better when you finish first. But understanding the currency in work and understand the value that has and the lessons that are learned, and everything that I had learned in the Navy had brought me to the position that I am now. Even the negative stuff, even the times where I was, going to captain's mast and having to argue my way out of things. It's like even my ability to approach and understand how to, for lack of better words, manipulate a conversation to have it go in your favor. It's like at times I was like, that's not who I want to be. And it's like, well, take that skill, take that work, maybe not the outcome, and utilize that for something better. Utilize it for when you're training someone that you might not have a lot in common with, or actually, opposing ideas, how to be appropriate and to be able to deal with them. And then to get to that end goal of helping more people and having them promote your services. And so that was a big turning point when I finally realized that the world owes you nothing. It doesn't matter what you've done. It owes you nothing. And when you have that attitude, you're going to win. Because as soon as you think that you have it harder than anyone else, or that no one else knows what you're going through, or any of that, it sounds harsh, but you've lost. You're a loser. That's a mentality of a loser. And it's hard because I was there. I was that person. And as soon as I was able to fully realize that, my quality of life improved dramatically. And it was, it's always that saying when people are like, if everyone threw their problems in a pile and you saw everyone else's, you pull yours back out. It's like everyone's going through something, but you also don't have to dwell on that. Like, oh, what I have is nothing compared to that. It's like, don't be a martyr, and just do your best and be of service and help for other people. And that's going to be, the absolute best thing you can do. And that was a major, major turning point in my life.
That is such a beautiful story. I don't even know where to start with that. So first of all, I love the fact that, you found yourself in this victim mode, which we all do, by the way, from time to time. We fall into victim mode of, woe is me. But the universe responded, right? And brought someone into your life, it sounds like, that really shifted that perspective for you, which is exactly what you needed in that moment and helped you get to that next level because of what you just said. You shifted your mindset, you shifted your perspective. Now, you could have very well stayed in that victim mode. You could have stayed in that, mindset, and your trajectory probably would have looked very different, right?
And I think everyone knows someone who's stuck in that mindset. And I'm not saying, hey, abandon all your friendships with people that are stuck in that mindset, but that's that friend where you're like, you're going to say, hey, how was your day? And it's like, oh, this happened to me and this happened to me. And you're like, oh man, like, at the surface level, it's like, you're no fun to be around, my friend. Like, can you at least fake it? And guess what? You start faking it and you start maybe trying to look at things a little more optimistically. I bet your quality of life is going to get better. So just lie to me. No, it's not like, let's not harness your emotions and make it seem like something else isn't going on, but maybe let's try to look at something that good happened in the day. Maybe you parked somewhere for 2.5 hours and you only paid for 2 hours of it and you didn't get a ticket. Like, let's focus on that rather than if XYZ. Again, just silly example. But no, I know what you mean. And I was so fortunate to be pulled out of that. And it wasn't, I want to note one thing too, is that Chris didn't sit me down and show me this manual of here's how I don't feel sorry for myself. He just didn't feel sorry for himself. And he carried himself in a way that made me think that's how I want to be. And so it was a decision on my part, but he taught through his actions. He didn't preach about it. And those are some of the best mentors I've had, is that people that live it, and I see what they are and I see what they can become. And I'm like, that's what I want to be. Not someone who's like, hey, make sure you're doing this, this, and this to have the best quality of life. And I was, especially after leaving the Navy, I was no good at people telling me what to do. In fact, you could probably tell me what to do and I'd already be doing it. And the likelihood is that I would stop doing it just because I was told to do it. Like, that's how contrarian that I've started to become. But again, I digress.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And it's the true definition of a good leader is leading by example, right?
Yeah. And I truly believe that. And Chris did it in spades.
Yeah.
Chris had that in spades.
I love that. And I guess, what do you think? I know you said, you see people like that who are stuck in that victim mode mentality of, all of these things are happening to me. One of the things I like to help people shift their perspective with when it comes to that is, sometimes we have to zoom out. We can get very mired into the here and now, very focused on the negative. But sometimes we have to zoom out and think, not why is this happening to me, but what is this trying to teach me? Right. And somehow looking at, as hard as it may be, an opportunity that we can get out of it. Maybe it's not in that moment, maybe it's longer term. But I would love, from your perspective, what do you think the biggest factors are that hold people back?
I think it's not usually something that just happens. It's usually a learned behavior.
Yeah.
There could be many reasons. I don't know exactly why, that someone may feel like that. But I can tell you one of the things, I'm more of a like less why and how do we get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that's really helped me, and I took two ideas, and again, I stole these from friends. One of them is I had a friend who, when you talk about accomplishments, everything that he did was amazing. From military to going from like a seaman to admiral program, from enlisted to officer to becoming a firefighter to then, getting, all of these amazing things. He's just an amazing, amazing person. But maybe the way he was raised, he had a really tough time celebrating his own accomplishments and thinking that he was insufficient. And there's two things that really, really helped me in having him get better at it. Is one thing is I would always tell him, I wish you saw you the way I do.
Mm-hmm.
I wish you viewed your accomplishments and things the way that I do, because you wouldn't be talking like this. All of those things that you're saying are made up in your head. It's made up. You thinking that you're not enough is a made up thought from you, because I don't think that. And I view you as this, and so does everyone else. And it's like, if you could only take that step back, that was super helpful. And then another thing, good friend of mine, James Hobart from the CrossFit world, he was just a stellar scholar, went to law school, and then decided he wanted to coach CrossFit, which is not a typical task for someone to do, to go through law school, graduate law school, and then do that. But it's more of a fun one. When someone is saying these negative things, or especially that negative self-talk, is you would say, hey, don't talk about my friend like that.
Mm-hmm.
To them, or if, like, if my girlfriend or my friend or someone wants to say something, like, hey, you don't talk about them like that, because I would never let anyone else talk about you like that. So it's more of a funny thing, but it's these small habits where it's like, it's this compiling thing. It's not that one thing happens and everyone's like, oh, woe is me, my life sucks, I'm not good. It's like how you view certain situations. So to change the viewing angle and say, I wish you saw you the way I do. And then also it's like, don't say that. I don't want to hear that about you. I don't want you to say that about you. That's not how I feel. It's not how I would accept or let anyone else talk about you.
Yeah, it's beautiful advice and such an important point to keep in mind that, the way we see ourselves versus the way other people see us, there's usually a pretty significant discrepancy there. And there's this concept that in the work that I do that is, about being enough. It's enoughness. When do we feel enough? We're always chasing and striving for success, but it's really about finding that inner sense of self-worth. And it's the value disparity in terms of how we see ourselves versus how other people see us. And how do we reconcile that in terms of our identity? Right. And I think that's when we can really cultivate the authentic, true inner confidence to be who we are authentically meant to be.
Yeah, and a second piece to that is, um, once I had created that journey and everything was fantastic in that, I got married, we had a kid,
Mm.
um, and slowly our marriage was going bad, and it was to the point where we were, from her words, friends under the same roof,
Mhm.
and it wasn't intimate, it wasn't what I thought love would be, and I stepped out of our relationship, and it wasn't the right thing to do, and it hurt a lot of people. Worse, it hurt my ex-wife, who is now one of a very, very good friend of mine. We were raising our daughter together, but
Mhm.
man, I had 1,000 ways that I could justify it. I could talk, and because of my experience and playing devil's advocate and being able to talk both sides of the story, like, I could convince myself that I did the right thing to do because of what had happened to me in this relationship,
Sure.
rather than just taking ownership of being like, hey, I did this, and I can either live the rest of my life trying to convince people that it was the right thing to do, or I can move on.
Yeah.
And again, I'm really brushing through this story quickly, but I mean, it was like friendships of both of our people that were friends. It was like it was a disaster. And I put a lot of people in really, really tough situations. And at some point, instead of being like, hey, I'm still a good person, guys, I'm still a good person, this is why it happened to me. It's like, you know what? This is this is what happened. And here's what I'm going to do to move past that. And here's what I'm going to do to move on and to get better. And one of my favorite quotes is something by Alex Hormozy, and it says, confidence is not built by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are.
Mhm.
So at one point in time, when you talk about like reinventing yourself, it was hard for me to coach a class after that had happened, because all of these people that my word was whatever they would do, and I was this honorable, this great person, all of these things. Now I'm standing in front of people, not knowing who knows certain details, who knows what, and I'm telling them these things, and maybe my words are falling upon deaf ears. And it was like I wanted to convince everyone, hey, I'm still this same person from before. Like, I can tell you all these different things, and it was like, no, you've got to restart, and you've got to restart from zero. And now, instead of telling people that you're a good person, you've got to go above and beyond to do the things to be the person that you say you are.
Mhm.
And 4 years after that, I truly believe that I have an undeniable stack of proof that I am who I say I am. And I don't have to tell people that. I don't have to show people. It's like, hey guys, here's all the things. It's like people see that and people will move on from that. And because of that, and the amazing people that have been in my life that I did significantly hurt, it's the quality of life is better than I've ever had before. And it wasn't the blueprint, right? It wasn't the path that I wanted to write out there, but I know now what I can do and how to avoid something from happening again, and taking responsibility rather than finding a way. I'm such a good person. How could this have happened? Oh, it must have been something that someone else did for me to have to act like that. And it's bullshit. It was a lie that I told myself.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to have gone through that and had, still incredible people by my side. I had close friends that were my brothers, that left my side, that left me in a time where I may have needed it most. But who am I to judge someone on how they react in a situation when they're doing the same thing about how I acted out something? So
Mhm.
self-responsibility, taking credit, owning it, fail fast. You fail, good, own it. Yes, I made this mistake, rather than this is why I made this mistake. Move on with your life. And
Mhm.
it's put me in a position now that I am the happiest I've ever been. I'm the most confident I am. I understand a lot more of what's going to continue to make me happy. And it's hurt a lot of people along the way, but I don't want to say I wouldn't have it any other way, because I'd probably go back and change a couple of details, little minor details in there. but I'm just super grateful.
Yeah, I love what you said about owning it, right? Accepting failure. I think so many of us were raised to not fail and to be afraid of failure. So that's a huge mindset shift in terms of being okay with failure, accepting it, acknowledge it, embracing the mistakes, taking accountability and responsibility for where we are and the actions that brought us there, and moving on from it, right? Acknowledging it and then saying, okay, well, what's next for me, rather than dwelling and getting stuck there. I also appreciate what you said about, we all sort of grow up and have this vision in our mind of what we want our lives to look like. And some of us become so attached to it that it becomes very difficult, if not impossible, for us to embrace those twists and turns. And so, what you just said is super powerful in terms of rolling with it, right? Being okay, embracing that maybe our life isn't unfolding exactly the way we thought it would, but that's okay. And embracing it rather than trying to fight it.
Yeah, and I think that comes from major things and minor things as well. The
Yeah.
ability to, a Navy term, improvise, adapt, and
Yeah.
overcome.
Yeah.
But even just in small things, it's like, what's this? Is it worth me getting all super upset about, or let's just roll with it? It wasn't exactly how I wanted the night to go. Man, I'm still here. I have my friends. I'm having a good time. Like, let's just keep going with it.
Absolutely. It's the key to resilience. So, Conor, I'm curious. We talk a lot about redefining success on this podcast, and I'm curious as to how you define success for yourself today, and how has that definition evolved for you over time?
Well, no one is going to be asked this question now and say money. No one's going to have that response being like, money is success, fancy cars, jewelry, women. And that's kind of how a lot of people look at it. Like, oh, I want that. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to retract that from being a piece of it, about those things, about being almost like tokens of success more so. And that was kind of like my main definition about what I wanted from that. I wanted a job where I did something awesome, but I also wanted financial freedom, and I wanted
Sure.
that. So it was hard for me to figure out success. And I think I knew success as become a Navy SEAL. You succeeded in it. Like it didn't talk about how you would operate or how you did the job or what you were known as in the teams or whatever that would be down the road. It was just accomplish this. And so I think there was a lot more to it. And it was recently, I read a book and it was referencing Alfred Adler. So the Adlerian theory of psychology, and how he defines success or happiness is usefulness to other people. And it's like, well, how useful? And that's, it wasn't even the matter of it being like, well, how useful do you have to be successful or happy? It wasn't even that you really needed to be that useful. It was the belief that you were useful to other people, the belief that you were doing something that was contributing, that you had people that relied on you, that there was some level of need for what you were doing. And what I love about that is that it can stay true to how I feel about my levels of success, about training, and how other people need me or want me to improve their quality of life. Like that is, to me, success. The relationships that I have and the things that I'm able to do from those relationships. But it also trickle downs to, if you are a plumber, you don't own the company, you just go and you work on plumbing. It's like people need you.
Mm-hmm.
You have a service that helps others,
Mm-hmm.
and it can go as high up and as high down as possible. And when you see some of these hedge fund managers who have billions of dollars, yet they're miserable,
Mm-hmm.
and I've trained them before. I've trained them full time. And it's like every day your workday was shitty. Every day it was a bad workday and you had things to complain about. I'm like, I sat in this basement for the last hour and a half waiting for you, and I'm still pretty excited about life and here could only imagine. And so it's like some point in time when you lose that usefulness to others or that
Yeah.
drive on how you can positively impact, this sounds cheesy, other people, or positively impact the world. It's like that's how I would measure success, is how much you believe you're helpful.
Yeah. Such a beautiful sentiment, and I couldn't agree more. Conor, what is one thing you want our listeners to consider doing differently or changing after listening to this episode? What advice do you have?
I love that you asked that question. I always ask it when I'm on my podcast, but I never think about an actual answer. And I think my answer will change depending on the context of it.
Sure.
But I think one thing that I would do, because we've spoken about it on this, is there's one thing that you can do, and you can start right now on improving your quality of life, is be very, very weary of how you speak about yourself. Even if it's in a joking term,
Mm-hmm.
even if it is something that you truly believe, like know that you don't control your thoughts. People think like, but I've heard a quote says like, I'm the thinker of my thoughts. And it's like, I wouldn't even say that. I think you're the observer of your thoughts. And one thing that Chris does is he's like, if you truly believe you're in control of your thoughts, think about one thing for 60 seconds, just one thing, and watch how crazy your mind will go. You just observe your thoughts. So even if there's something that keeps coming across, if you believe it, then you can make it true. But if you can say, that's not really useful to me, I am enough, I am worth it, and I'm really good at these things. And you can start saying that stuff. You can start to turn to that mental battle from all these things happening to you to how you are reacting to it. And so just that one thing is be very weary of how you're speaking about yourself, and know that just because it's a thought in your head doesn't make it true. In fact, it's really nothing at all. It is just a seamless bit of information passing, and you can pick and choose on what you want to believe.
Yeah, such great advice. And it's true, because we have a lot of subconscious thoughts that come to the surface, and we believe that our thoughts are facts, and they're not, to your point. So I think it's a great point to question the thoughts as we're having them in the moment and realize that they're not necessarily true. So great advice. Where can our listeners learn more about you and the work that you do, or if they want to follow you on your podcast and your journey?
If you follow on Instagram at Conor T Murphy, which is CONORTMURPHY, and then as well on Instagram is Big Night Fitness, BIGNIGHTFITNESS. We didn't get to talk too much about that, but my passion for training and then highlighting other trainers as well is really, really exemplified on both of the pages, mainly with the Big Night Fitness stuff. And then through there's the Hoobies or link trees or whatever they are to lead to all different events, whether we're doing retreats, whether we're doing in-person classes, whether it's private training, whatever it is that we're doing, you can find it on there. And if you want to contact me directly, the email is contact.conormurphy@gmail.com. I can't promise I'll get back to you right away, but if you send me an email, I promise I will get back to you, or a DM on Instagram. I'll always get back to you and always make time, because of the amount of people that have made time for me when I didn't quite either earn it or deserve it, and how much that's changed my life. So I'll always get back to you in any of those mediums if you reach out.
Amazing. Perfect. Conor, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, your insights, and your expertise. It's truly been a pleasure. And also importantly, thank you for your service. I could spend hours talking to you. So maybe we'll have to do a second episode. So thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Gia.
And of course, you can visit my website at gialacqua.com. Reach out to me on Instagram at gialacqua. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. This is Gia signing off with gratitude for your time and energy. Our mic drops, but the movement continues. Until next time, your next chapter is waiting. Take care.
That concludes another empowering episode of Your Future Starts Now. Before we wrap up, I want to thank this incredible community of high-achieving women. Your energy, resilience, and commitment to growth are the driving force behind what we do. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate it, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower high-achieving women just like you. And of course, share Your Future Starts Now with the extraordinary women in your life who are also on a journey of healing and empowerment. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, let us know what topics you'd like to explore in future episodes. Stay connected on Instagram at gialacqua. I encourage you to carry the energy of this conversation into your day and keep on supporting the incredible women around you. Until next time, remember, your next chapter is waiting.